Welcome to another episode of Wild Wild Bets. We're hoping you're all having a fantastic betuary so far. Um, and may I just say, happy championship game week to you, man in the Michigan hat.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure obviously talk about it from the betting angles, but also just as a fan, it's kind of still a little surreal. I'm
Mhm.
enjoying it, obviously, but I'm just at the point where all the narratives around the game, I'll know how I actually feel about it depending on how the game goes. So I'm just ready for it. Just tired of waiting for the kickoff.
He was in so much jubilation and ecstasy last week after the Lions won their first
Oh
playoff game in 30
yeah,
years that we never even had a chance to record.
yeah. I
Um,
was, they say 4 hours see your doctor. Well, 48 hours later, I was yeah.
yeah.
So
Uh,
had to be careful.
I mean, seriously, a historical accomplishment.
Mhm.
Um, it's probably something where you feel like it's probably weird because it's like you mentioned to me, it feels like this game is house money. Um, And really, I think anyone would say even the divisional game was house money, even though you were the favorites against the Bucks, you're the favorite against the Rams. Like, just the fact the line, like right now, you're not thinking, "Oh wow, that was historical," because you're still in it. You still have a shot
Mhm.
for the big prize.
Right.
But at some point, you're going to look back and say, "Hey, very worst case, this was quite a historical achievement. We broke basically, I don't know if it was considered a curse in Detroit, but a 30-year drought of both winning a division, winning a playoff game. Not only do you win one, you win two playoff games,
Mhm.
maybe a chance for a third and a fourth. I mean, it's crazy accomplishment.
For sure. So I told you this. My and at some point we're gonna go back through. We wrote down all of our division division predictions before the season
Yep.
with record predictions. We'll go over all that before the Super Bowl. But my thought going into the season for the Lions specifically was goal is win the division, which had been uh they had never won the NFC North. Last time they won was the NFC Central, and win a playoff game, which had been 30 years. So it's like with Michigan, the goal is kill the narrative of originally it was you can never beat Ohio State, and then it's okay, well, you can't win a bowl game or make the playoff, and then after that, it's well, you can't win a playoff game or go to the, it's like the goal is to beat these narratives. So I know it's like every year your goal should be to win the Super Bowl, but to me, it was just win a playoff game this year. But after, because I thought our second game would be, on the road in Dallas, something like that. So I did move the goalposts after we beat. Um, sorry, I think we're having a connection issue. If we cut there, okay, we're good. So because I thought week 2 would probably be on the road in Dallas or something like that, that would have been okay. We won our playoff game. We accomplished everything we were supposed to this season. That would have been house money. But like you said, because we were favored, I did move the goalposts and I said, okay, we need to beat Tampa. Like, because even though originally I just expected to win one playoff game, you also have to adjust expectations as the season goes along based on what happens in front of you. If your quarterback gets hurt, you adjust expectations. You use in the other direction. If you're playing a team whose quarterback gets hurt, or like the Vikings, Kirk Cousins
Sure.
goes down this year, things happen as the season goes on where you have to adjust your expectations. And that was one for me where when I saw it was the Bucks on, like, we were at home hosting the Bucks, you got to win that game. And they did. So this is the first game that is house money. Like, I would obviously, I'm going to be rooting like hell for the Lions. I think we have a shot in the game. Making the Super Bowl would be insane. But if we lose this game, unless we go out and get embarrassed, like if you lose this game, it's a great season. And so yeah,
even if you get embarrassed, even if it's the
yeah,
final score is 45-7,
right.
it still is a historical achievement for the Lions and a big step in the right direction. Um, something that I really I've said it time and again to you. I have never I never in my wildest dreams thought Dan Campbell would actually be the kind of coach that he is. Like, you
especially
know,
after like year 1, halfway through year 2.
oh yeah, and just
Even
like
at hiring, like just the vibes around who he was, what kind of coach he was. Like we knew the players would probably like him. Um, but yeah, it didn't feel like he was gonna be like a legit good coach in some ways.
I honestly wasn't convinced the players would like him because I like just looking at I don't know I just his press conferences early on every time he spoke I was just like man this guy is an absolute. It wasn't even like
Yeah.
he's a meatball. It was like guy's an idiot. Like some of the things he'd say, you're like it makes
Like we'll tread water as long as it takes to bury you. It's like that
right
doesn't even make sense.
yeah, but
Yeah.
there's this
And you're right.
endearing
Like the gimmick thing,
factor.
like if you never start winning, that doesn't hold last in the locker room.
Sure,
Like players
sure,
turn on you if you're weird and gimmicky. It's the same thing with like Mike McDaniel. It's like it works when you're winning. When you don't, it just makes it that much easier to dislike you.
yeah.
Harbaugh's another example. So yeah.
Well,
So
speaking
yeah,
of
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, it's a good transition.
well, speaking of Harbaugh, because we'll talk more about the Lions when we get to our our betting segment here in a little bit. But the biggest news going on in sports, other than the biggest news in sports in general is coaching changes, whether that's the
Mhm.
NBA or the NFL. Um, I don't know how many people expected the third place Bucks to fire their head coach mid-season. Did you see all this going
Yeah, and
on?
hire a guy who I never understand why he gets all these high profile jobs, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, because his like first season coaching, he won a championship. That's why.
Yeah. And then his
And
last
then he's
4, he was
choked.
fired for choking away title contending windows, but what do I know?
Yeah. I also honestly thought that was quite odd. But did you see the video going around on Twitter of all the players like dancing in a circle? The
After they
Bucks
hired
players.
after they hired him or after they fired the
I
other
don't
guy?
know. I think Doc Rivers was hired, but it was the next game that they played after Adrian Griffin was fired. You
Mhm.
saw they were all doing like this big circle dance, like the whole team.
No, I didn't see that.
They were pumped, dude. They were having the time of their lives. It looked like tequila was playing in the background at their cousin's wedding. You know what I'm saying? The
Wow, what a
da-dun,
move.
da-da-da-da, dun-dun,
It's like
that
the
song.
John Harbaugh in the locker room at the Ravens game
Yeah,
dance.
it was exactly like that. And
Huh.
so people were joking. They were
I mean,
like,
that's a bad look for Griffin.
it's a really bad look. They were just like stoked.
Hmm,
Um, but anywho,
hmm.
so that was going on, and yeah, I do not get the Doc Rivers love. I mean, we have no room to talk because our teams suck, but I
Fair.
feel like I feel like objectively, we can just say like it seems like Doc Rivers gets a good amount out of his players during the regular season, but during the postseason, there's always finishing issues. And you can easily blame finishing on players, but
At some point. Yeah.
some people, he has a repeated resume of it. It does raise a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So
He's the coach version of the Clippers, which is why that's just such a perfect fit. Where it's like, yeah, I don't know. To me, once you've shown who you are enough times on enough teams with enough different superstars, it's like once somebody shows you who they are, believe them kind of thing.
yeah,
I don't know. Will have to be. I'll have to see it to believe it that he could get a team over the hump in the postseason.
and I'm sorry. I think the acquisition of uh, Siakam was a great move for the Pacers,
Mhm.
but I'm about done seeing Pacers fans cream their shorts over like a sixth place team. Okay, cool. Halliburton's cool. Siakam
He
is
is really good.
cool.
Melbourne's really good.
Siakam won not a national championship. He won an NBA championship because of Kawhi Leonard. Let's be real, and Kyle Lowry and stuff. Like, I
Yeah.
just think I don't know. Like, it's a cool
Yeah.
move, but it's not. Siakam elevates you to a playoff team for sure. You're not contending for anything. Sorry,
And
you're
here's the
just
part that's
not.
hard in the NBA and why in general, I just don't love the NBA product. This is a big reason why is there it feels like there's very few teams that can ever contend for a title, and it's
Right.
like you can make moves that get you over the hump, and this applies to the Bulls and Pistons too, where you're in this tier where it's like you can make the right moves to get you over the hump to become like a solid playoff team, but it's a huge gap to go from that to title contender.
Mhm.
And I just I mean, you look at teams like the Kings last year, who like it seems like they're building it right. They're exciting. They have a great home field advantage. Everybody loves them, and like you still just don't get anything done in the playoffs because that's the way the NBA is designed. So I don't
Yep.
know. I feel like unless you're one of the 4 or 5 teams, privileged teams, I look at other teams this year that are good right now, like the Thunder, the Timberwolves. Like you have these teams that are good regular season records.
Grizzlies.
Yeah, it's like none of them are winning a championship. It's just it sucks. It's the way it is, but the championship's going to be won by a team like the Bucks or the Celtics or the Warriors. You know, one of these teams that has like a
Maybe
championship
Warriors. Yeah.
pedigree. And the Warriors aren't even that good this year, but it's like when you get
Yeah.
to the postseason, they're in that tier at
Suns.
least of one of the 5 teams that you feel like actually have a chance to win. I don't know.
That's just
Maybe
it.
maybe I'm
There's
wrong. It
like
just to me it sucks. The regular season is so meaningless in the NBA.
every year there's like 3 or 4 teams that you're actually like, "Oh, these 3 or 4 teams could win the championship." Everybody else, it's like I they're just there. They're just fodder for these teams to tread on in order to get through their season, to get their
Yeah.
seeding, to get through the playoffs, to get to the semifinals, to get to the championship. Like
And you could
it's
argue the NFL is like that too, somewhat, but
no,
the
because the
other
NFL
sports aren't. And the NFL seeding actually matters. The NBA playoff seeding is so worthless where because of load management during the regular season and stuff, it's like you have a team, the seeding integrity is just destroyed because you have a team that's like a 2 seed or 3 seed has a terrible matchup against a team that everybody knows is like one of the best teams, but just didn't really care about their record during the regular season. So I don't know.
sure.
The NBA playoffs just feel broken to me. Um,
Well, what I
it's
was
also
just
a
gonna
very star-driven league with smaller rosters, so it's like in a 7-game series instead of 1 game, where it's like the any given Sunday.
well, that's why football will always be king because
Yeah.
every game they play a quarter less than a quarter of the games, right? And
hmm
so quite literally every game matters. The outcome of every game matters for your chance at the playoffs, right? That's why like at the beginning in the first month of the season, even though everyone's like, "Oh, it's a glorified preseason now." It's like, "Sure, but if you start 0-1, your playoff odds drop considerably. If you start 0-2, even more, 0-3, even more, 0-4, you're cooked." Like
Yeah.
you have to start strong or you will your season uh extinguishes pretty quickly. So
hmm
the NFL, there's just way more weight to each game. And I think in any sport where there's larger rosters, it creates more parity naturally, right?
That's
So
true. Yep.
football, hockey, and baseball, like
And
baseball and
baseball and
hockey
hockey, you
both
also get a
have
lot more randomness where like 1
sure.
point or 1 score swings the outcome of a game a lot more. The NBA, and maybe you could argue makes it better. The NBA, though, where there's so much more scoring, the better team does just truly win 98% of the time, especially in a 7-game series. Baseball or hockey, 1 swing of the bat, 1 crazy bounce can like swing a whole series. So you still
Right.
get that randomness too, just from the way the game is played.
I mean, baseball and hockey, both of them have like, I think around 25, 26, 27 man rosters. Football,
Mhm.
obviously, of the 53 man roster. Basketball, isn't it 15? Isn't that the size? Or is it 12?
I think it's 12, isn't it, for the
12?
NBA?
Yeah,
I
you're
don't know.
right. 12.
I mean, you have
12.
less guys than that who get significant minutes. So yeah, it's
Yeah, a 12-man roster. Right. 12-man roster, 7 people play.
yeah,
And
right.
yeah, it is a different animal the way it's handled. And there's a reason basketball is super popular.
hmm
I
There's some
attribute a
stuff they do really well. Yeah.
oh yeah. Well, I mean, the way they handle their stars, they really
Yep.
put them on platforms to succeed. But what I was gonna say is just that of all the sports in America that we consume, basketball is the one that is accessible to pretty much anybody
Mhm.
because all you need to play basketball, if we're being honest, is a wad of paper and a trash can, right?
True.
Kobe,
Yeah.
like seriously, like we make basketball jokes when we do those things. Like it's such
Mhm.
a simple concept of a game that you can pick it up and play a version of it almost anywhere. And I think that
Yeah.
translates to why people love it
And
so
you can
much.
play as somebody one-on-one or play by yourself, which you can't do with the other sports. If you're playing baseball, you can't play by yourself. You can play catch, but you're not competing against that person.
Right.
Good luck playing football by yourself. It's like hockey you can shoot by yourself, but it's like golf. It's so inaccessible because you need a place to play it and special
A
equipment.
lot of
So
equipment.
hockey's just always
Yeah.
going to struggle with that. Basketball, yeah. So I don't know. It's a lot of personal preference too. I know there's people out there who think the NBA is greatest league in all of sports. It all is just personal preference. All
And
to
I,
get
I
back to the
really,
betting side of this though, it's
yeah.
so regular season NBA is borderline unwatchable and unbettable because it's just like
Yeah.
you see these
It's a
crazy
wild card.
swings. People sit out 10 minutes before the game. You'll see a team be down by 30 and go on a 30-0 run. It just feels like regular season NBA is just so unpredictable and ultimately meaningless that I don't know. It's just hard for me to get into that right now from a betting standpoint.
Yeah, I think if you're going to bet on the NBA, a lot of it comes down to knowing players and matchups
Yeah.
and betting props probably with those players.
Mhm.
Um, or if a play, like for example, the Bulls, think still have yet to beat Joel Embiid when he plays.
Hmm.
They've beaten the 76ers, but when Embiid is resting or injured,
Yeah.
when Embiid plays in the game, he is yet to lose to the Bulls. So it's like, okay,
In his career,
yes.
it's interesting.
Well, so what does it tell you, right? So the Bulls do not match up well
Mhm.
against a dominant center, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So Embiid, therefore, so you can take that information and say, okay, well, I'm definitely going to bet against the Bulls and probably 4 Embiid points and
And
rebounds
rebounds, yeah.
when he plays the Bulls. Guess what? I'm probably also going to do it when the Nuggets play the Bulls. Like go through, okay,
Mhm.
who are your dominant centers? Maybe even like maybe I don't
Giannis.
pick the Spurs, but maybe I go over on like Wembanyama rebounds or something
Mhm.
when they play the Bulls. You know what I'm saying? Like you go
Yep.
through who are dominant centers that the Bulls don't match up well with,
Mhm.
and that kind of takes care of that in a way. But anyway,
Yeah,
it is
there's angles
challenging.
you
It's
can
not
bet it
easy.
for sure. But yeah, I don't know. It
It's easier to
maybe
bet than
once
hockey still, to be honest. Like
hockey is
hockey,
just so random. I've had a little success betting, so this is just betting on the randomness of hockey. What I've started doing recently is I will only bet underdogs on the money line because
yeah,
it's so random. With that, I'm like, okay, you're going to get destroyed sometimes on your bets, but you need to hit less than half of them to profit. So it's I
it's
look at
true.
so I'll be like, all right, Red Wings at home plus 130, you know, I don't know, Vancouver at home plus 160. Like you find these teams who are pretty decent and home underdogs, especially, and they're getting plus points. It's like I only need to hit, if I hit 2 out of these 3 bets, I've profited money. If I hit 1 out of
Yeah.
the 3, I break even. Like to me, that's how I bet hockey. But there is just a lot of variability, obviously, doing that.
And betting anytime goals is honestly a
Yeah.
waste of money. I have a lot of fun doing it, but
You
it's
did that
such a
with Bedard
waste.
for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, and I still will when he gets back from injury, but
Yeah.
and that's been part of it for me. It's killed. I've been watching the Hawks pretty faithfully this year, but once Bedard went down, I'm like,
Yeah.
and the Hawks, oh my word, the Hawks they've been destroyed with injuries. Like there
Yeah.
was a
It's been like
graphic at one point.
4 or 5 top line guys. Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, no, no. They of like your top. So I'm trying to remember when you have your original roster and you have your 4 lines of 3 forwards, and then you have
Mhm.
your 3 lines of 2 defensemen. So altogether, that's what 12 plus 6, so 18 like top guys that perform of your
Mhm.
roster. Of that 18, it was something like at one time like 12 or 13 of them were all injured at the same time. Like
That's
of our
great.
of our starting season starting top 15, 18 players.
Hmm.
We have like 5 of them that are healthy. So
Yeah.
there's and that's again another thing with sports that's so dependent upon luck is just like injuries are a hard thing. And but anyway, that's why betting it's not easy. That's why there's shows about it. That's why people talk about it. We need each other to get through the ups and downs of it. But
Wow, that was a deep message there at the end. That was good.
yeah.
We
Well,
all need each other.
real briefly, let's shift over to the other big coaching news that's been going on because we haven't even touched that yet. But NFL head coaching jobs, a lot of people expected that once Harbaugh picked a job, that a lot of jobs would fill quickly, and we've seen that exact thing happen. So
Yep.
this season, there started with 8 head coaching vacancies. Help me recall all these. There were the Raiders and the
Yep.
Patriots
Yep.
and the Chargers and the
Mhm.
Falcons and the
Mhm.
Panthers and the
Mhm.
Commanders and the
Mhm.
Seahawks.
Mhm.
And there's one other that I'm
Titans.
missing. Titans, thank you. So that's your 8 vacancies. That's a big deal. It's a quarter of the league needed
Yeah.
new coaches. The Raiders filled in with Pierce, who was their
Smart.
interim. Yeah, I think so too. The Patriots had already worked out with Gerard Mayo to
Terrible.
take over for Belichick. I don't know if that's terrible, but I don't know if he's much more than a filler either.
I just don't know enough about him to be like you're trusting him. You're going to be drafting a quarterback this year. The roster is pretty garbage. I would if I'm
Well,
them. I'm trying to get an established coach, but I don't know.
Adam
I just
Schefter
don't
would
know
say
enough
at
about
least it took care of the Rooney Rule. So
him. Did he say that?
did you not see that?
No, I'm sure that was
Dude, so
controversial.
basically it was like telegraphed to the whole league that Harbaugh's going to go to the Chargers, right? Well,
Right.
you have to appease the Rooney Rule. And for anyone
Well,
listening, if you're
that's
not
just for
familiar,
interviews, isn't it?
yes, you have to interview a black candidates or minority
Minority
candidates
candidates. Yeah.
to fulfill the Rooney Rule, right?
Right.
And so the Chargers interviewed, I don't remember his name, but they interviewed this one guy. And Schefter tweeted out, he's like, Chargers completed their interview with this person, so the Rooney Rule is now fulfilled. And people were like,
Wow. Which is basically implying
dude,
that's the only reason the interview is conducted.
yes,
Which maybe it was, but that's such an insulting thing to say for that candidate.
yes, yeah. So,
Jeez.
anyway,
Not the first time Schefter's put his foot in his mouth.
I know.
Jeez.
So since then, the biggest coaching move has been that so Raiders, Pierce,
Mhm.
Patriots, Mayo, then
Yep.
the Titans, is it Callahan, something
Callahan, yeah.
Callahan? So the
Offensive
OC,
coordinator for the Bengals.
that's right. So he's the head coach there now, which I don't really like that hire at all.
I
He
don't
he,
That
he
was a
also seems
name I
like a
hadn't really
filler guy
heard.
to me.
Yeah, the reason it didn't stand out to me is because I just hadn't heard the name floating around. Like normally you hear name like Ben Johnson or whatever, you hear these names float around. If I don't know, they must have just really loved him, obviously, but I would probably be waiting for a guy like Ben Johnson instead.
Right,
Um, you also wonder too, like if you're taking that job, do you think Will Levis is the future, or are you looking somewhere else?
right.
So I'm curious what Callahan thinks about that for next year.
Yeah, no, that'll be an interesting development. And then from there, the big fish dropped, which was Jim Harbaugh going to the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, dude, this might come as a shock to you. And there has to be. I'd have to look. I'd have to find the exact tweet to know how it was worded. But one of the there's a PFF guy that's a super reliable source,
Hmm.
and he said that this had all been decided basically in October.
So during his suspension, he's thinking like Harbaugh was having conversations because that would have probably been like right
At the beginning of
during
the suspension, maybe?
potentially the beginning of that second suspension, like during the Penn State game,
Yeah. I don't
which
know
that might have been a
exactly.
little early.
I don't know
Huh.
exactly. Obviously, there's no way it could have been confirmed because otherwise there'd be major tampering issues there,
Which
which maybe the Chargers
different
will be hit
league to
with that.
league
Maybe,
is
I
that
mean,
a
Harbaugh's
problem?
been known to cheat, so.
Right? Yeah, Harbaugh would never.
No, there are tampering rules, and like that's the whole point with the Rooney Rule, right? You can't just hire anybody. You got to go through a process. I don't know, but anyway, Harbaugh to the Chargers. Um, okay, here's my quick thoughts. I really wanted him to go to the Bears. I don't even give a rip that he was a Bears quarterback. Cool, sure, fine. I don't
Yeah.
care. Sean Payton was a Bears quarterback too. I don't care. Point is I just want a good head coach, and I was like, Jim Harbaugh is that guy.
Yeah.
Um, at the end of the day, I've learned to be content with what the Bears are doing. Them hiring Shane Waldron, I'm very excited about as an offensive coordinator.
Hmm.
There was a wave of negativity when he was first hired from not from
I
Bears
didn't.
fans,
I
but
didn't get
from
that.
mainly Seattle media.
Which that
But I've
makes
been
sense.
but I've heard from a couple other Seattle media recently from on different podcasts who've been more positive, and I'm thankful for that. But anyway, I just here okay. I honestly, it might be a hot take. I really wonder how it will go in LA. The
Mm,
Chargers are one of
mhm.
those franchises that never they seem like they're a franchise that will never get over the hump. And I know we were
Mhm.
just saying about this about the Lions a few years ago, but the furthest they've ever gotten, right, is like a championship game with Phil Rivers.
Yeah.
I don't know if Harbaugh can really ever get them past that point either, to be honest with you. It
It's
feels
like,
like
how
as a
long is he gonna
franchise that's their
be there?
ceiling.
You're in a really tough division too, as long as Mahomes is there. It's like, how long is he gonna be there long enough to turn things around? Can you
Mhm.
win during Justin Herbert's tenure? Because if
Mhm.
not, I don't know if Harbaugh's gonna be there long enough to draft another guy, you know?
So he signed a 5-year deal.
Yeah.
Um Obviously that's just kind of initial, and I think that's somewhat standard for a lot of coaching contracts,
Sure, there's
but
ways out of it for both sides and all that, but
yeah, I
yeah.
mean, and that's the thing that's interesting to me is Harbaugh is being presented with this without the opportunity to win on a rookie quarterback contract, right?
True. True.
Herbert's already been paid, so now you're already strapped for cap, right? You're already looking at cutting various defensive veterans and other pieces because you got to come into a certain number.
Yep.
And so it's interesting. The other interesting key to it is just people have said, well, was Harbaugh hired to be kind of a GM head coach because the Chargers have yet to announce a GM after
Yeah.
firing one? Maybe
Was
Harbaugh's just
he
going to run the
GM
show
in
there.
San Fran? I know he kind of
No, I don't think
functioned as
so.
it. Okay, he's very hands-on. Um, it'd be interesting. How many other so Belichick was, how many other head coach GM, like officially head coach GMs even were there in the league recently? Were there any?
I mean, the last one I can think of would have been Bill O'Brien had that role in Houston for a
Yeah.
little bit, but
Maybe they'd
that
hire
was a
like a
while ago now.
president of football operations who would be like a partner GM and
Yeah.
officially name him the GM. Yeah,
Surely they've got to hire. I'm sure they're going to hire somebody that technically has the title of GM, or they're going to give that role to Harbaugh. I'm not sure. It'll be interesting to see
Harbaugh
what
will be
happens.
very hands-on though, for sure. So like the drafts coming up and stuff are gonna obviously, because you're having to get rid of some vets, how you draft to replace them is gonna say a lot about how successful he is, and he's gonna have a huge hand in who they draft. So yeah,
Well,
I mean
so
he's gonna determine his own future there for sure.
so all that to say, I'm just very, very curious how it all goes because even though I really wanted him, and maybe it's my own coping with missing out on him, but
Yeah.
I do legitimately wonder of all the places, like I don't know, for some reason, him going to Atlanta, which was an option,
Hmm.
I don't know why, but that one seemed like more of a home run to me than the Chargers. And
Hmm.
I know everyone said, "Oh, the Chargers are a dream because they already have their quarterback." What if he doesn't want to use Herbert? What
Right.
if,
Yeah.
like, you're kind of locked into Herbert by going there? And I mean, by agreeing to go there, he must like him at least a little bit.
You could for sure trade him But if your
Mhm.
first act as head coach is trying to get Herbert shipped out of town, you better be right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, some Bears
So
fans were saying, like, with Harbaugh there, maybe Herbert's not his guy. Do you try to trade first overall pick for
that would be
Herbert?
hilarious. Yeah. I
Well, it'd be
mean, you
interesting
do
to
that
see.
if you're the Bears for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but again, Harbaugh, you're already on the clock when the second you're hired, but you make a move like that, you're cutting your tenure to like you better be good year one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
interesting. I hope he does well. Like obviously as a Michigan fan, there's that other side of it. I'm not even upset by it. I know a lot of Michigan fans are upset like, well, he's hurting our recruiting by stringing this out or whatever. Like I'll never begrudge a guy for if you leave the right way, which to me, if you win a championship, however you leave after that is the right way. Like I'll never have a problem with somebody leaving while they're on top. Same with JJ. It's like JJ McCarthy, I feel like could have to me, I was like, I think it would have been better for his draft stock if he came back. He would have been, really good in the Big Ten probably next year. But I can never feel bad or bitter. Like being sour grapes after a player leaves or a coach leaves when they just won a championship is just dumb. So it's like, hey, wish him the best. Um,
right.
I do think he's really good. And the thing, I think part of it is running from the NCAA. He's just tired of dealing with it. And there's a good chance he would have faced some suspensions and stuff next year. The other part of it that Michigan's never going to offer is okay, he's won a national championship for his alma mater. He's never won a Super Bowl. Michigan just
Right.
can't offer it. You can't compete with that. Like if a guy wants to go to the NFL and win a Super Bowl as a college team, like you can just never compete with that.
Yep. True.
There's only 32 of those jobs, as we say all the time. So it will be very interesting. Like it's going to be one of my favorite teams to watch next year, whether they're good or bad. Just the Harbaugh experience there.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see, yeah, how it's all played out. And I think you mentioned it. We didn't really dive too deep into it, but the whole dynamic of him being in the AFC West
Mm-hmm.
is a very interesting choice to me
With the
because it.
Raiders there, who were also talked about as a candidate for him, so you're going to have that comparison.
Well, no, to me it's just the Chiefs. Like you're going to a division
Yeah, that too. Yep.
against like the Chiefs are there. So right off the bat, your entire tenure in LA, so under your current contract, you're going to struggle to just win the division, let
Yeah,
alone get like it would have been bad enough to go to the AFC where you basically have to go through the Chiefs to get to the Super Bowl. Now
right.
you're going to have to go through the Chiefs like twice almost because you got to get through the division and the playoffs with them.
Can you
So
look up real quick because I don't have my mouse plugged in? Do the Chargers play the Ravens next year?
I think they
Because
do. I think that was already confirmed.
that's gonna be must see TV, obviously.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But in 2024. But yeah, so I think him going there is interesting as opposed to dude, if he went to freaking Atlanta
He would make the playoffs next year if he just was
immediately. Yeah.
competent. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers host the Ravens and John Harbaugh in 2024.
That's
Looks
gonna
like
get
a
flexed
good.
to a prime time. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I
You're not
mean,
flex like scheduled as a prime time right now, I'm sure.
well, if the Ravens win the Super Bowl, you could easily have that as the week 1, the Thursday night opening matchup.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. Because they haven't announced dates for matchups yet, right?
Oh no, that won't come until May. Yeah,
So this is just teams. Yeah.
we gotta get through the Super Bowl and the combine and the draft and all that fun stuff. Um, but yeah, so Harbaugh got hired. That was the big fish, and then after that, some other pieces fell. So we had the Atlanta job being filled by Raheem Morris, which was interesting choice in my
Yep.
opinion.
Yep.
I know they had him previously as a interim. I guess he made
What
a
was
good
he
impression.
doing?
I don't know.
I saw the name. What was he doing though most
D-
recently?
DC for the Rams.
It doesn't wow me.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know. I just feel like if
The
I'm
Rams defense is good, but Aaron Donald is like
yeah, Aaron
I
Donald
don't
should have
know.
been offered the job. Yeah, I don't know. the part we're never going to know is like how well these guys do in interviews. And if you go into an interview and you are really prepared, you're a great communicator, you could present a clear plan for what you're going to do for the team. Like that's the part we don't know from watching their current jobs they have.
Right.
So I don't know. Just the resume itself. To me though, especially like, okay, what makes me excited as a Lions fan is like the number of jobs for Ben Johnson to take are diminishing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But if I'm one of these teams like Atlanta, I don't know why you wouldn't hold out for a guy like Ben Johnson.
Yep.
Like there's plenty of candidates. I don't know. Some of these moves feel a little rushed
Yep.
to me, but
What I actually completely agree with you, and I'll get to that in a second. But just to finish this out, uh, so Raheem Morris to the Falcons, and then uh, Dave Canales, the OC from the Buccaneers, to the Panthers, which I've seen varying opinions on. Some people think it's a good move, some people don't. I think it's a smart move, just because he did a great job with Baker this year. You
true.
basically, at this point, it's sad to say this, but at this point, you're already at a last ditch effort to resurrect Bryce Young to what he was supposed to be.
Yeah, 1 year in, it's scramble to save his career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you hope he can do that if you're the Panthers. But that leaves just the Seahawks and the Commanders left as far as head coaching openings,
And
which
if
is interesting.
Belichick feels like he's getting one of those still, doesn't it?
Well, so Belichick, Vrabel, Pete Carroll are the big established coaches that are out there.
Seahawks could get a guy like a Pete or a Pete Carroll type coach. That'd be crazy.
The hot OC names are Bobby Slowick from the Texans, and then Ben Johnson, of course, from the Lions. And I think Ben Johnson's probably always been the top referred to offensive candidate
Mhm.
for head coaching. But it's interesting because if you are Seattle or Washington, if the Lions win on Sunday, do you continue to feel pressure of like, man, we got to get a coach lined up? Or like, it's an interesting
Mm.
thing, right? Like, they can't make a
Yeah.
hire. And maybe that's part of why these teams haven't. Maybe these teams plan on hiring somebody from one of these teams that are still alive. And that's why a hiring move hasn't been announced. I don't
Because
know.
they've still conducted interviews with them. Like Ben
Yeah.
Johnson has done like 6 interviews a week for the last few weeks. And so one of those teams could very well have basically an unofficial, like, yeah, we're going with Ben Johnson. We're just gonna wait.
But it would be,
But a couple of the teams that I thought would be thinking that way then hired somebody. So I
but
don't know.
dude, if like Bobby Slowick's gotten a lot of like people naming him, if Slowick goes to one of these teams and then you have those three big coaches and
And
Ben
yeah,
Johnson, you have a really good shot as the Lions to maintain him as an offensive coordinator again.
that
My
would be
last concern,
crazy.
my last concern if I was the Lions, if Ben Johnson's retained somehow, is if Andy Reid retires and the Chiefs want to try
Yeah.
to
Hmm.
get him. That'd be the only spot that I think you could end up losing him. But I just feel like the Seahawks are going to go either Ben Johnson or Bobby Slowick. I feel like the
Yep.
Commanders are going to command, and they're going to. I know they're under new ownership, but it just feels like they're going to take either Vrabel or Carroll or Belichick because it's just, I don't know. It just feels like what they'll do. So
I
I
agree.
think
And
you have an
it's hard
outside
to
shot, which is crazy.
Yeah, that'd be huge. I mean, I had basically written off that he was gone and prepared myself for that reality. And if he's not, I mean, we've bought another year. He would definitely be gone, I would think, the next year. So
Right.
that'd be huge. But you don't know. I mean, the Commanders, like you said, new owner. Maybe they also want to go young, up and coming. I'm still expecting him to leave to one of
Yep.
those two spots, and I'll just be pleasantly surprised if he's not. So
Um. So yeah, the whole coaching thing is interesting. Um. And yeah, the Bears, nobody can compete with the Bears because the Bears have
sure.
the greatest head coach of all time.
Yeah. Nobody else has the hits principle. It's just
Matt
something to think
Eber,
about.
I can whistle through my teeth without trying. Floose. Yeah. Um.
Yeah. Oh
All
man.
right. Man is right. All right, let's before we get into our betting, which will mainly be conversation about NFC and AFC championship weekend. Let us first do something we haven't done on this show yet before, but we've done it on shows of ours previously. I honestly have no reason for doing this other than just that I think it would be fun, which is that
That's
we
a
should
good
do a Mad Lib. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So for anybody that does not know how a Mad Lib works, go find a time machine and go back in your childhood and try again. All right.
Yeah, if you don't know what a Mad Lib is, I'm sorry for you. Your
um,
parents didn't love you.
yeah, but no, in all
You didn't go on enough
seriousness,
road trips.
if you want to see a Mad Lib, all you got to do is look in the House of Representatives. All right, no, seriously, a Mad Lib. A Mad Lib is a little story or a few sentences. People have removed different things, items, certain qualifiers from these sentences, and somebody's asked to fill in those blanks, and it usually creates a pretty funny story at the end. So let's get into it. I need an adjective.
Saucy.
Okay. Adjective.
Fergalicious.
Ooh. Make the boys go loco. That's the definition, folks.
The dictionary definition.
Yeah. A part of the body.
Yeah. Oh my. Scrote.
All right. A number.
69.
An adjective.
Slippery.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Plural noun.
Lizards.
Okay. Way to keep it family friendly. A noun. A person, place, or thing.
Oh, okay. A word ending in ing.
Or an idea.
Cowboy. Fitting our
Mm.
theme.
It's a great Kid Rock song.
Cowboy.
A plural noun.
Igloos.
Mm. Part of the body, plural.
Testicles.
Oh boy. A noun.
um, um, handcuffs.
Oh. Part of the body.
Jeez, this is a very anatomy-based Mad Lib.
This is the last part of the body. Taint. Okay.
Oh. Or gooch is the medical term for it.
Okay. Okay. All right. Noun.
Saddle.
I'm a little uncomfortable with the body parts you mentioned and cowboy and saddle, and I'm the one wearing a cowboy hat right now. I must say.
I like the way this is going.
I need another
Furious.
noun.
Um, biscuit.
Mm. Risk it for the biscuits.
Mm.
Another noun.
And I'm not gonna say that.
Oh, come on. Come
Um,
on.
20-foot glass bong.
Okay. Adjective.
Aroused.
And a noun.
Is this the last one?
Yeah,
Did we have 0 verbs?
correct.
Oh, I had dildoing in the chamber ready to go.
Well, you can take the ing off and it's noun.
True. Forklift.
All right. All right. This is called dog versus cats. Dogs versus cats.
Okay.
Which are better, saucy cats or Fergalicious dogs?
The age-old question.
Anyone with half a scrote knows that dogs are 69 times better than cats.
Why? I guess they are.
Dogs are slippery companions. I wonder how we found that out. While cats only care about their own lizards. Dogs are loyal to their cowboy, but cats will love whoever gives them igloos to eat.
Hmm.
Dogs like to have their testicles rubbed, while while cats will bite your handcuffs if you try to put a taint or gooch on them.
All right.
So
I mean, yeah, probably.
that happened to me once before. So yeah,
Yeah, I hate when that happens.
most dogs love going for rides in a saddle, but cats just get sick all over you. But cats just get sick all over your favorite biscuit. Dogs love to play fetch with a 20-foot glass bong, but if you throw a 20-foot glass bong for a cat, it will just look at you like you're aroused.
It's a good thing I said didn't say for 20-foot dog what I was gonna say. Read that line again.
Dogs love to play fetch with a 20-foot glass bong, but if you throw a 20-foot glass bong for a cat, it will just look at you like you're aroused.
Okay. What I was gonna say was a lot more phallic. With
Bongs are still pretty phallic.
they are, yeah, it's true.
All in all, when it comes to dogs versus cats, only the dog is truly man's best forklift.
Oh, that was nice. It's also good I didn't say dildo there.
Hey, it's true.
Couple bullets dodged. Oh wow.
Hey, but yeah, if you ever
This story is sponsored by Jif peanut butter.
if you ever, in order to make man's best friend your best friend, sounds like all they need is a little rub on the testicles.
Yeah. Fortunately, my dog doesn't have them anymore.
My dog is a female, but I still try it anyway.
Good for you. Oh, what a story.
All right. With that, let's go ahead and get into NFL Championship weekend. So, our first game of the weekend is Sunday afternoon, if I recall correctly. I need to pull up our trusty partners that we don't actually have official partners at, but what the app is that I use. It starts with an F and rhymes with Pan Cool. Um,
DraftKings? No,
shh,
not a
shut it.
sponsor.
Yeah. Um, all right. So afternoon game, we have the Chiefs visiting the Ravens. Do you know the lines or do you want to guess them?
I already know him. I should
Okay.
have not looked. But
So
I'd been
Chiefs.
hearing him it all week.
So the Chiefs are 3.5-point underdogs on the road against the
Mm,
Ravens. The over/under is 44.5. And listen, before we talk about it, I've been doing this kind of like game with my coworkers at work.
mm-hmm.
Um, there's three of us, and basically since the beginning of the playoffs, we were picking every game. And so we started by picking every game against the spread. And we've been playing with the magic number 6. Like you have to have 6 bets. And so it started with the 6 wildcard weekend games against the spread. Then we moved to during divisional weekend, we did was it 4 games against the spread, and then you had to pick 2 over unders that you liked a lot. So we did
Nice.
that. And then this week we're going to be doing both against the spreads and over unders. And
Okay.
then the person with the worst record so far gets to have their pick, and we are going to do a snake draft for selecting anytime touchdown
Oh
bets.
my.
Yes.
This is a very
So
intricate.
I have the second selection of where I want to draft in the snake draft. So
All right.
I don't yet know where the first person is going to pick. Knowing him, I'm going to guess he's going to pick the third spot so we can have the back to back. But
Hmm.
if he picks that, I'll probably pick 2.
Okay.
If he picks 1 or 2, then I will pick 3 probably to have the back to
Okay.
back.
So we're going to keep an eye out for player props for our listeners, but also kind of with that in mind that
Yeah,
you got to
help
pick
me
a couple
out.
here.
And our stake at work, because it's at work, is really, really important. It's huge. Okay, it
Okay.
is a 16-ounce soda of your choice.
Whoa, that is
Yeah,
huge.
yeah,
I mean,
huge.
it's
Uh,
huge. I
Not
did
to get
just drink this soda.
political, but
Yeah, no.
huge. All right. So this game, Chiefs 3.5-point dogs over
Okay.
under. My initial gut reaction to this is betting the Chiefs against the spread and the over.
Oh my, I was going to go exact opposite. Gee. I bet I, oh, that's funny.
Great.
I bet the Ravens
Wonderful.
and the under last week. We lost the under. One of the worst beats in a while. We didn't hit the under
I had the over.
by 1 point because of, and it was a meaningless field goal, but Baltimore ended up in a weird spot where they couldn't run the clock out. They're up huge, but you can't punt because you're at like the 25-yard line, and you can't go for it on 4th and long because that's also like kind of unsportsmanlike. So they ended up just kicking a field goal in a spot where that was, enough to push it to the over. So that was funny, but I'm taking Ravens and under, I think here. Under just because both teams have good defenses. I think the Ravens are just a better team all around. I do get the side of like just take Mahomes in the playoffs, especially with Lamar's track record in the playoffs. So because I do think Lamar Jackson might struggle against this Chiefs defense. I think Chiefs offense is going to struggle against the Ravens. So I think this stays low scoring. I think the reason the Ravens are going to win this game is because both teams, I think, try to establish the run. I think the Ravens are going to be more successful at running the ball, which lends to the under too. So
I don't necessarily question that the Ravens will win the game, but 3.5, that
it is
half
a big
point to
number.
me.
Yep.
I mean, this feels to me very much like last week's Chiefs game, like against the Bills, where basically everybody was each team was matching each other on each drive, right? Whether
Mhm.
if one team scored, the other team scored. If a team didn't score, then they didn't score. Back
Yeah.
and forth. It feels like it's going to be the same thing in this game up until the end. And I feel like in a close game, I don't know. I feel like if the Chiefs lose, it's going to be by a field goal or less.
Yeah.
So
I'm
I'm more banking on that than I am necessarily the Chiefs winning.
I could see that. I would feel if the line was 2.5. There's no way I don't think you can bet the Chiefs. But
Makes you a
three and a
lot more
half
nervous.
is a powerful number, yeah. And there is something to the fact, like, okay, and if you get to the point where it comes down to one quarterback with the ball last to win the game, who do I trust more? You know, if you're in a game
Yeah.
where you have the better quarterback, you always have a chance. So I don't know. I just have real concerns about the Chiefs' offense ability to sustain drives with their skill wet receivers and the drops and all that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. This feels too like a game Andy Reid's gonna probably have some stuff schemed up here. I kind of have the same thought on Dan Campbell. It's like you end up in a big playoff game as the underdog, and you've shown like a propensity before to take some big risks and fake punts and all that. I think the Chiefs are going to be looking to outcoach the Ravens too. So
And I just
that's
feel like as far as the over-under is concerned, I just feel like 44.5. I mean, my gut react the lowest score I would assign this game personally would be like 23-20, which would be under.
Hmm.
And then but I feel like it's more likely that you end up with a 26-23, 26-24, 27-24, 30-27, somewhere in the range of 23 to 30 is where
Hmm.
both teams are scoring, and that gets you clearing the over. I don't know. I
Yeah,
I don't know what the stats are for Chiefs and hitting the over, but I feel like it happens a lot, especially in the postseason. They just know how to score. So
the
I know
Ravens
the
do
Ravens.
too. Yeah.
I know the Ravens have good D, but I don't know. I'm
Oh,
gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the over here.
yeah.
So sorry, I'm directly opposing you, but
I will not forgive you, but thanks for saying it.
um, so help me through some anytime touchdowns here because I got to think of some options since I don't know where I'll
So
end
I
up in our
haven't
snake draft.
looked. Do you have the odds up? So I haven't looked at this yet. I'm going to guess who the favorites are.
So the guys I'm doing this with are not hardcore betters, so we're not doing full on based on odds. It's just like
So you
you're
pick who's you
so
think's the most likely. Yeah.
because you want to hit a win, right? So
Okay.
if I have the first pick, like Travis Kelsey's probably one I'm gonna take because it's like
Right.
feels like very likely he's gonna score, or like for the Niners game, probably gonna pick Christian McCaffrey. So the odds
Right.
don't matter, but it's more about picking who you think's most likely, which kind of equals odds in its own way.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yep. I get that.
So
So a couple thoughts. Do you have to pick one from each game, or can it be two from the same game?
yes, one
Okay.
from each game. I already thought about
So
that because I was like, if I got lucky enough with the Niners, I would do like Jahmyr Gibbs and George Kittle if
I
McCaffrey
was
was
gonna
off
say,
the board or something.
think about if you have the first pick. Do you feel best about a prop from this game or the next game? I think this game
You're,
part the next game because the
I
next
agree
game
with you.
have more scoring too. I think so.
The next game has more rushing threats
Hmm.
too. There's more obvious scoring threats in
Yeah.
the next game as opposed to this one. Like I don't know, like Rashid Rice is super
Pacheco,
high up here on the board. I don't know, like
he's been good. Yeah. I don't know. Obviously, Kelsey is going to be a big name. I would feel better about multiple people in the next game than I'd feel about Kelsey. Pacheco is always a decent bet. Lamar Jackson's always a good bet. Gus Edwards, I took him last week and he didn't, so that makes me think maybe he'd be a good bet this week.
mhm.
Uh, is
Andrews.
Ayuk back? Is he listed on there?
I think he's playing
Because that makes Isaiah likely a lot less likely
likely.
for me. So yeah, I think if you're going to that game, I would go Lamar, Edwards, or
Kelsey.
Pacheco. Kelsey too. I'd probably go. I just tend to like taking rushing
Okay.
players, receivers. I'd probably go like Lamar and Edwards and Pacheco before I even touch a receiver in that game for either
I
side.
see. I appreciate the thoughts there. I just Kelsey is Mahomes' bread and butter, and I mean,
Yeah. Did
almost to
he
the
have
point where
one last week
he
against
had
the
two.
he
He
had
scored
two against
twice.
the Bills? Did he
Yeah.
have it first round?
I don't recall. It just feels like I think he did have one. It just
Yeah.
feels like when it comes to dire situations here in the playoffs, Mahomes is going to find his guy, and his guy is Kelsey.
Plus,
So
Taylor Swift will be watching, and he has to do another heart celebration.
yeah, that was sweet. I hope this time he just whips it out.
Oh, just starts slamming his baloney on in the end zone. This is for you, Taylor.
No, and then
That
up in
would
the
be
sky,
awesome.
up in the skybox, then Jason Kelsey also whips it out.
They just we'll
Yeah,
already be
Jason
shirtless.
Kelsey
You're already
goes
halfway there.
full nude. Yeah.
Just pushes it up against the glass. Just
Oh
look, it's an
man.
elephant.
But yeah. So I have just I know he's decent, but I've just never been an Pacheco guy. Like I'm just like
He's
he's
I don't know.
fine. I don't know.
I
He's
like
above
him.
average.
I like the running style and all that, which that's kind of been overblown too. It
Nobody
does
likes his
feel
running style. What are you talking about?
I
People make
like it
fun
because
of
it's
him.
unique and funny.
Okay.
Like he runs like he's trying to like not he's like running barefoot in snow and he's trying not to touch the ground for very
There
long.
was somebody showed a side-by-side comparison of Pacheco running and Waluigi running in Mario Tennis. And it's like,
Somebody said they think Aiden Hutchinson runs like Waluigi too.
did they?
Kind of runs like that, like with his arms flailing a little
That's
bit.
hilarious. That's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how
yeah.
much of a red zone threat he is. I'd have to look back
So
at the numbers and
so
see.
you'd go Lamar. Your ranking would be Lamar, Pacheco, Edwards.
Lamar, Edwards, Pacheco.
Okay. I
But
I'd
Edwards
probably
also shares carries with what's the other guy's name? Uh
Hill, is it?
Justice
I
Hill,
don't
yeah.
know. Yeah. I probably am gonna go if depending on where I pick, I'm probably gonna go Lamar, Kelsey, which are the top two worst odds.
Kadarius Tony.
No.
Yeah, that's where the odds come in if you're betting, obviously, but also for your competition, the odds just kind of reinforce your pick where it's like if
Yeah.
that's the favorite on the odds, it tells you you're in the right direction. So yeah.
Yeah. So all right,
Lamar
cool.
had 2 last week too. I feel like, it's probably pretty safe.
Do you have any other like player props for this team this game? This
As far
game's
as
tough,
overs and
honestly.
unders, no. I like the team under, or I like the total. I like the under, so it makes it hard
Mhm.
to take props if I'm banking on a low scoring game, which is why I probably honestly won't be taking any touchdown props in that game. So yeah, I'm probably just going Ravens and under.
Yeah. Here's one that's kind of interesting, depending on how you think they do against the Ravens defense. You can get Mahomes 250 plus yards at plus 102.
Ooh, man.
It's kind of
So game
interesting.
script wise, though, if I think the Ravens are going to be winning for a majority of the game, that probably means he passes more. So
True.
even if I think the Ravens are going to win, sometimes I like betting the team I think is going to lose. So like I did that with the Rams and Stafford. It's like if I think a team's going to beat them, I like betting the opposing quarterback because game script wise, they're going to be throwing a lot in the third and fourth. So
Then
yeah,
this next one says over under 3.5 million Bears fans saying Justin Fields is the same as Lamar Jackson.
over.
Yeah, I'm going to go over as well. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was told you can't win with a quarterback who only throws for 170 yards. This means Fields is the future. Yeah.
Oh, so spot on. All right. Let's move from that AFC Championship game to the. Sorry about the connection issue. We're back.
You're good. I got you.
All right. So the night game. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Check.
Hello.
Check. Pacheco.
I can hear you, but you're
Can you hear me?
yes. Your video's frozen though, so I don't know.
Can you
if
hear
it's gonna-
me?
Oh no.
Ciao. Okay.
I think we're good. Yeah, we're good.
So all right. So the night game we have the Detroit Blue Boys,
Yeah.
uh,
The what?
and,
Yes.
and the San Francisco 49ers, horny Niners.
Oh, got him.
So the Niners are a 7-point favorite. Now, didn't it open at 6.5? Am I crazy?
It opened at 7. It dropped to 6.5 like that first day, and then got back up to 7. I think it stayed at 7 now for most of the time. Plus, now on Pan Cool, it says -7 is -120. So if anything, that tells me it's going to go to 7.5 potentially.
That's ooh.
Disrespectful.
If it goes to 7.5, man,
I mean,
I
already
am
Lions plus
slobbering
2.
all over that.
Oh, all over that 7.5, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Lions plus 290 on the money line feels like a pretty saucy bet to me too. Plus 290.
Ooh.
Okay, I'll
Mm,
say so. Even as a Lions fan, the Niners are
interesting.
favored here for a reason. I think there's a good chance the Niners win the game. I'm predicting the Niners right now. I'd say objectively, I think the Niners will win the game. By game time, I'm
Yeah.
gonna talk myself into a frenzy. Lions by 30. Just you know how it is. But I do think the Niners win. 7 feels high to me.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised though, because if anything, I thought based on how they looked against Green Bay, the public would be like, everybody
On
loves
the
the Lions,
Lions.
Cinderella story or whatever. Not Cinderella because they're one of the higher seeds, but like they're America's favorite team or whatever right now, and people would be low on the Niners. So the fact that this is still at 7 kind of makes me wonder, like, are there some big money? Is there some big money professional gambler types, throwing money on the Niners? I don't know. It feels like a lot of points to me, but
I'm yeah. If it goes so if it was 6.5, I like the Niners.
yeah.
Um and that's a spot where I feel like Detroit could still end up covering that 6.5, but I wouldn't hate it, I guess. Like I'm okay with
Mhm.
taking the Niners at that. When you hit 7, that half point changes everything. And if it moves
Which
to seven
worst
and a
case
half,
you might, which you can look at it like, hey, worst case, then I push. I think the 7 is a big number where I could see them winning by exactly 7. But then
yeah,
worst case, you get the push. So it kind of protects you there if you're betting the Niners. It's not like you're looking at a 7.5, which based on where the juice is at, if I'm betting the Niners, I don't feel comfortable at all laying 7.5 points. 7,
yeah.
I feel okay, but you cannot take -7.5. That's a crazy number.
All right, so here's the deal. I'm gonna bet the Lions, and I'm
Yes.
probably gonna bet the over. However, there's this really like small part of me that I want to go away that just tells me the Niners are gonna win by like 17.
Yeah,
And it's just like, and someone on the radio today like overemphasized to me about how Ayuk is just gonna like destroy the Lions secondary.
he is
And
going to. I mean, that's
yeah.
for sure going to happen.
And so then you're left with the question, can the Lions match the scoring, or can Brock Purdy fail enough?
Right.
Um and that's really kind of the question. Um man. So I want to take the Lions. Part of it is, even though they're a division rival, I also find myself rooting for them throughout this whole thing too. Um,
Mhm.
so in a way, my heart wants the Lions to win too. Um, so at 7, I'll take the Lions. If it gets to 7.5, I'll feel really good about taking that.
Yeah.
Um, I love the idea of sprinkling on that money line plus 290.
Mhm.
Um, over under is interesting. I
Yeah.
think for the Lions, I think I think typically you would want the under for the underdog to
I know
win.
exactly where you're going with this, and I agree. Yeah. Yep.
But I really think for the Lions to win, it has to be a shootout.
I agree. Yep.
And so I think if you're going with the narrative that the Lions win, it's going to be a 36-34 game or something like that.
I think if you're the Lions and you want to win this game, you should plan to get to 35 points. You know,
Yeah.
I don't see any way around to that, you know. And even if the Lions are trailing late, their offense has shown they're capable of scoring quickly too.
Yep.
So like if I'm say the Niners are up, 28-17, and you're like, oh man, I'm worried about the cover. I wouldn't be shocked if the Lions score a quick touchdown. You're right back on track. So I agree.
Yeah.
The part I'm concerned about, so it's outdoors, it's in a warm climate, but like I think it is natural grass. I'm a little worried about, do the conditions, because that was part of the issue with Brock Purdy last week, the rain. That's the part I'd worry about. Is closer to game time, maybe you keep an eye on what the field conditions are supposed to be like. But style of play, I think, lends itself to the over here. The part that would maybe affect this is I think both teams too are going to be trying to establish the run. And if either team or both team is somewhat successful running the ball, that just runs the clock quicker. So you might still get successful
True.
scoring drives, but just longer drives.
Which
I
brings
mean,
it
the
down to the
Packers,
under.
yeah. So the Packers were successful running the ball.
But they
Looking
didn't
back
score
on that Packers
touchdowns.
game, right?
Yeah.
Looking back on that Packers game, I think you're going to see a much better Niners game, a much better Niners team in this game than you did against the Packers. And that's what makes me scared as a Lions fan, is like, you look at how good they were all season. They had a rough stretch, like first half of the year, they lost like 4 out of 6
3 in a
games or
row.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, they lost 3 in a row. Purdy looked terrible. They figured it out, and then I think they were a little rusty coming off the bye. They struggled against the Packers. I think you're going to see like mid-season peak Niners most likely in this game.
Which maybe, but to be honest, like you could say the Niners playing the 7th seed, the first 7th seed to ever advance, right? You
Mm,
could say it's weird to say in a playoff game, but you could say it was like a trap game in a way because
mhm.
they're looking ahead to the championship game and whatever. But I kind of do view that game that way, and that's part of why they struggled. But I have to say, there's been plenty of teams in the NFL. The Lions were an example of this when they almost lost to the Bears. And my reaction was, oh, that was a trap game basically for them. They're going
Mhm.
to come back and win the next week. And they got blown out
Mhm.
by the Packers on Thanksgiving.
I agree
So
with you on that too. Yeah, that's a good point.
there's that possibility is very much there that whatever concerns there were
Mhm.
continue. I don't
'Cause
I
one of
don't
the
know
biggest
is
concerns, if Purdy's bad, like that's you can't fix that overnight.
well
And
that and I don't think Debo's playing. He's not listed on the anytime touchdown scorers list. He'll
so he's
probably be
50-50 is why I think they just don't offer the odds on it.
okay.
Um,
He'll
I
probably
thought last I
go.
heard he was trending towards playing. The question though is just going to be how limited is he? So it's kind of like
Right.
Laporta his first week back. Um, yeah, I don't know.
So okay, so help me with touchdown scores. So obviously McCaffrey's a home run pick.
Yeah,
Um
I think if you're picking
he's
first in the snake draft, you should just take McCaffrey.
oh yeah.
Um,
It's
I
like
think
a
he's the
guaranteed
favorite
win.
out of both games. I think he's the most likely.
So that's actually been part of my temptation is like if my coworker I don't think he'll pick first, but if he so assuming he doesn't pick first, the one reason I've thought it'd be worth it to pick first and have the first and last is so that I can take McCaffrey and basically be a guaranteed pick.
Mhm.
But we just went over that I think the Ravens Chiefs scheme is harder to pick. So if I had the first pick, honestly,
Yeah,
I'm picking
like Lamar or
yeah,
something,
Lamar
or
or
well,
Travis Kelsey. So
so maybe you don't want to pick first because you'd rather your first pick be the third pick on the Ravens game, and then your fourth pick, like the next pick you make, you got a lot of good options still in this game. So there's some strategy to that too.
yeah, because to me, so assume McCaffrey's off the board. What's your
Yep.
next play?
If I'm picking two, so
It
not in this game
just
specifically. If
I'm
I'm
just
picking
saying I'm
any
just
prop,
saying that no, just anytime touchdown scorer in not in the 49ers game, McCaffrey is off the board. Who's your next pick?
Gibbs.
That's where I'm going. But they have a lot of people before him in this list here. They have
How many
Ayuk,
Lions? Is Montgomery before him?
they have Ayuk, Kittle, and St. Brown before Gibbs.
St. Brown shouldn't be, and in my opinion, Kittle shouldn't be. Yeah, I'd take Gibbs. Ayuk,
And
I think it feels pretty safe. I also bias to running backs. Like
St.
I just
Brown and
like your
Gibbs
odds.
have St. Brown and Gibbs have basically the same odds. They're Browns are slightly worse odds than Gibbs.
I think Ayuk's gonna have a huge day. My concern though, it's just so hard to predict wide receiver touchdowns. Like even St. Brown, like
Yeah,
he's had like 1,700 yards this year. He's
right.
only got like 10 or 11 touchdowns. That's like less than half the games. So it's just hard to predict receiver touchdowns. I think it's kind of the same for Ayuk. It's like he hasn't scored every game. So I don't know.
So
I'd like
honestly,
McCaffrey's a lock. Um,
I
go ahead.
think if I'm picking this, I'm going. My ranking is McCaffrey, Gibbs, and then probably Kittle. I love tight end targets for touchdowns. I think both of these coordinators do as well. Whether that's Kittle or
Yep.
Laporta, both of them seem to get targeted in the red zone, and I like them as an option. So if I have the last pick here, I know Ayuk is minus 110, but
Hmm.
I'm probably gonna go Kittle or Laporta.
For the sake of your coworker bet, Laporta won't
Yeah.
be drafted, I don't think, because he's not one of the six most likely on the whole weekend. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to actually betting it, what are his odds? Is it like plus 270, 80,
Plus
something like that?
180. 180.
Okay. I wish it was a little higher, but like base odds to score for you, where you just need to basically you're just picking one and the odds don't matter. I don't think you take Laporta, but as far as actually betting him, I mean, he had one last week. He had one. Did he have one last week? He had one against the Rams. He only had like one catch against the Rams, so it was a touchdown. Last week
You
I think he had like 9 receptions last week. So yeah,
I have I have a couple super duper juicy bets for you if you want to like
okay.
probably not win but have fun watching and potentially have a big hit.
Okay.
Kyle Juszczyk
Yeah. Use
plus
check, I think it's
950.
pronounced. Yeah.
Kind of like that idea.
Is Ronnie Bell listed?
Ronnie Bell is listed at plus 650.
Ooh, that is a saucy little wager.
And at plus 800 is Zach Ertz.
Oh boy. Yeah. I would not be betting that, but it would be fun.
It would be super interesting.
What's Josh
Honestly,
Reynolds?
I'm gonna sprinkle on Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
I can't. That's unavoidable. Uh, Josh Reynolds is plus 390.
Those props just always feel so light to me. Like I
Yeah.
don't know. I just always feel like if you're picking a player to score a touchdown, it's probably just because so many people bet them, and that's why the sports books make all the money they do. If I'm picking a guy like Josh Reynolds to score a touchdown, he's been solid all year. I feel like you should be getting better than plus 390 odds. You know,
Donovan
there's,
Peoples Jones is plus 1800.
I mean, he's had like
I forgot
7
he was even
catches
on the
all year.
Lions. Yeah.
He's been good in some, like he's got a few key third down catches and stuff. If you get down in the red zone though, he's like your 9th option. So yeah, I don't know about that. First pick out of your coworker draft, you go Donovan Peoples Jones. Anytime touchdown off the board.
Oh man. Yeah. So
How great would that be if he does though? He'd look like a genius.
so you tell me, like, if you had the first, would you? Okay, if I had the first pick, I would pick to go third because I would like the back to back idea of doing a
Yep.
snake pick with it, and I think that's why he's gonna pick that. After that, would you go first or second?
Second. Because if
Yeah.
he takes McCaffrey, like you've lost the best option on the board at McCaffrey, but
Yeah.
then you can now turn to the Ravens game and
Take
pick somebody
Lamar,
from
Kittle.
there and then
Yep.
go to the
Pat
second
Kittle
game with a
probably.
lot better options, So yeah, what
I
I
completely
probably would
agree.
do, I go second. But I don't know if you know your coworker well enough to know what he does, and you think you could still get Lamar at 3, then but that's a risk. I would probably just go second. I'd take Lamar. He's going to go back to back, and then you're still going to have Kittle, Kelsey. Oh no, so it's got to be for the next game. You'd still have Kittle. You'd still have probably Gibbs.
Yep.
You're going to have some
Montgomery.
options left still. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think the
Okay.
second best option is probably Lamar, and if you can get that game off the board first, it sets you up really well with your last pick.
Props for this game. You turned me on to Jared Goff plus 250 plus yards passing.
Yeah.
That was automatic last week. This week, 250 plus yards passing is minus 136.
That feels like another game situation thing where if you think the Lions are going to be trailing, they're going to be throwing a lot.
Well, or if you think it's going to be a shootout.
What is Gibbs yards?
Let me see here. 50 plus yards is plus 102.
Rushing yards or just total yards?
Rushing yards.
Oh boy, that's a lot. It's hard because he's sharing with Montgomery. I just wonder. So Gibbs is probably a closer parallel to like an Aaron Jones, who ran really well against the Niners.
Gibbs receiving yards plus 104 are the odds for 25 plus yards.
I like that too. Or you just try to find a total yards that's like in the 70s or 80s. Rushing and receiving. I think Gibbs is going to have a lot of success. So this gets into like the nerdy stuff. I don't know how much of this we want to do, but like the pin and pull blocking scheme where you get a receiver blocking on the edge, you pull a guard or a lineman who runs around to the edge. I think Gibbs is going to be really good running outside the tackles. Packers did it a little bit against the Niners. Lions already do it a bunch and are already good at it. I think you're going to see a lot of plays where Gibbs is like running almost like a sweep to the outside. You have a lineman like Sewell pulling and running, like run blocking out on the outside, and a guy like St. Brown. I don't know. I think there's a good chance Gibbs breaks off a couple like 20-yard rushes, which already gets you close to his rushing total. So yeah, I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really looking forward to this game. I think both games this weekend are going to be really good.
I'm glad the Lions are the second game so I can enjoy the first game.
The Lions Niners game is going to be the most volatile experience, where it's either going to be a really good game or it does have the potential for a blowout if the Niners return to form, like you said. So
I agree. I think this is the highest blowout potential because I think the other game's just lower scoring. Even though the Ravens have blown teams out already in the playoffs, I just think the Chiefs' defense is probably the best they've played in the playoffs. So,
I mean, the most shocking outcome would for sure be if the Lions blew out the Niners.
That would be awesome.
I mean, it's the NFL.
My
man.
shorts would be blown out too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. I think the Lions definitely have a shot in this game, and that's not some hot take when you're in the championship round of the playoffs. Like, of course, every team should have a shot. I think the Lions have a real chance in this game.
Yep.
And so that's why if I'm going to bet the Lions, this is just me as a fan. I think taking the points is smart. But as a fan, I'm not going to feel good about like, oh, we lost, but we covered. Like, hey, I hit my bet. Like, I'm going to bet Lions money line because I'm either going to be happy or sad based on the outcome of the game. So
here's one way to look at it is the Lions have never really struggled in this postseason. Mm-hmm. Like the Rams, I know it was a close score at the end, but it felt like the Lions were in control of that game pretty much the whole time. The Buccaneers game, I know it was close at one point, but again, I felt like the Lions were in control the whole time. The Niners were in peril for almost that entire game against the Packers. And even that last drive, Love was driving the field for the lead, right? For the win.
Yep.
Um, so it's interesting to me because I don't know. The Niners already showed signs of struggle. The Lions have yet to show it. So my point is the Lions clearly belong. It's not like, oh, like you reference them as a Cinderella story, which they are in the sense that it's the Lions, but in terms of how they've played this season and
Yeah,
this
I agree.
postseason, they deserve to be there.
Mhm.
And I really think it'll be interesting how it plays out. It's the one I feel least confident about betting because of the variety of ways I think it could go.
The other
But
thing I'll say is this. Shanahan is the better coach. I think they have the coaching advantage at this point in their careers. I think Dan Campbell is a very dangerous coach with nothing to lose. And I do wonder if like the Lions do feel a little bit of that. It's kind of like the same with happened with the Packers where it's like you're too dumb to know what to not to know what you don't know kind of thing where it's like we got nothing to lose. You kind of go into the game not with a chip on your shoulder, but like with a we're going to play loose and free and we're not the ones with the pressure. And if Dan Campbell goes into the game and coaches like, hey, we know we're the underdogs and we're just going to pull out all the stops and go for it, I think that makes them a very dangerous team because it's hard to coach for that. Fake
right.
punts are a possibility, flea flickers, trick plays you've designed for all your skill players and for tight ends, and you go for it in the red zone with all your weapons. I just think going back to like the variety of ways this game could play out, Dan Campbell's like the the loose cannon, the wrench in the plan where it's just like it's hard to account for that. And that could be the reason they lose the game too. I just think you see some of these, going for it on fourth down, try to steal a possession. Um, like as a Lions fan, I'll gladly live and die by that in this game. I think the chaos of doing that gives you a shot too. So,
Yep. I completely agree.
all right. Any last
All right.
thoughts? I mean, a long episode, but
Yeah, this is a long episode, but hey, there's a lot to talk about. We'll have
yep.
even more to say, I'm sure, next week, um, including maybe some Pro Bowl bets. I don't know.
No.
We'll start coming up
We'll
with some
just start doing the
better
Super Bowl bets. So
PGA.
next week, let's plan. We'll look back at which we didn't do our predictions on Wild Wild Bets. That was on our original show, but like it'd still be fun to revisit our
Yeah,
how we thought the divisions would shake out, the records we thought each team would have. Kind of make fun of ourselves for our worst takes.
definitely.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, good episode. Yeah, so follow us on Twitter at Furious George 94 at Michigan Hats on Twitter. Yeah, just have a good weekend watching football, some big games. Can't wait to find out what happens, and hopefully I win my work competition. So thank you for kissing your balls.
Oh my.